If the producers will produce the merchandise, I'll guarantee you us salespeople are absolutely going to get out there and sell.
Zig Ziglar is the salesman's salesman. The man who, by his own stunning example, single-handedly turned selling into the proud profession.
Yes, I'm proud to sell, because you see, our land has been developed because we are a land of salespeople.
A small-town boy who eked out a living selling cookware before making it to the top. Zig will show you how his methods can work for you.
We really haven't done a very good job of letting people know what the sales profession is all about, but we're correcting that right now.
For nearly 20 years, Zig Ziglar has conducted successful motivational sales seminars worldwide. Known as the Master Motivator, he has turned his one-man operation into a large Dallas-based corporation.
Selling in the professional sense is uncovering a need and then bringing to that individual the products or the goods or the services which fill that specific need.
As salesman extraordinary, Zig Ziglar will tell you how to charm your client, persuasively present your product, and close the deal.
Regardless of what it is that you do, you enjoy the high standard of living that you do because salespeople like me are out there selling.
Let's join Zig Ziglar now as you have a front row seat at his most successful sales seminar and learn how to make selling your proud profession.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, I don't believe I've ever seen as many men as badly overmarried as this crowd is. Got redheads and everybody. Now, I mention redheads because I'm married to a redhead. My wife's a decided redhead. Meaning simply that one day she just decided she's going to be a redhead, yeah. What a delight to see so many ladies here. You know, not only do ladies dress audiences up so much, but realistically, women are just so much more practical than men. Like this lady down home, this bum came up to her on the street and said, "Ma'am," said, "would you give me $1 for a sandwich?" She said, "Well, not until I've seen the sandwich." Now, you know, now that's practical. Like the two ladies talking, one of them said, "Well, I didn't want to marry him for his money, but that is the only way I could get it." Now, you see, that's practical. And what I'm going to try to be this evening, what I'm going to try to be is practical myself. I want to talk with you about the greatest profession on the face of this earth. I want to talk to you about the sales profession. I believe, oh, go ahead, I got time. Yeah. I just happen to believe that America is the greatest land on this earth because we are a land of salespeople. We're certainly not the greatest because we're the biggest, because we're not. Russia and China and Canada, Brazil, they're all bigger than we are. We're not the greatest because we have the most people. Why, India and Russia and China got lots more people than we have. We're not even the biggest because we have the most, or the greatest because we have the most natural resources, though we've certainly been abundantly blessed in that area. But then so has India, for that matter, much of Africa, parts of Russia, Canada, Brazil, all rich in natural resources. No, we're not the greatest because we have the most people or the most land, but we're the greatest because essentially we are a land of sales people. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I, for one, am tremendously excited about being a salesperson. The truth of the matter is, America was discovered by a salesman. Not by any stretch of imagination could you accuse Christopher Columbus of being a navigator. Now, if you'll remember, folks, that dude is looking for India. Now, he missed it 12,000 miles. Not by any stretch of imagination could you accuse him of being a navigator, could you? And you might say, well, yeah, but was he a salesman? Well, let me tell you the story. He was an Italian in Spain. Now, that's way out of his territory. He's only got one prospect to call on, and if he misses a sale, he swims home. Now, you tell me, was he a salesman or not? He called on Isabella, told her the story. She says, Chris, it sounds like a good idea, but man, $12,000 for 5 little old ships? See, a lot of people don't realize they started out with 5, but 2 of them did go over the side. You know? And you might as well know now. I tell folks I'm like a cross-eyed discus thrower. I don't set any records, but I do keep the crowd alert. And, you know, and I think that's important. He told Isabella the story, you know, and she related to it. She said, you know, it sounds wonderful, Chris, and if I could raise the $12,000, I'd buy the idea in a minute. But we don't have any money. How many of you salespeople have ever had a prospect tell you that they'd buy if they had the money, but they just don't have the money? Well, Chris looked at her and he said, look, Izzy. Now understand, I was not there, so I'm not certain this is verbatim, but you got that string of beads hanging around your neck. Now let's take them down to the pawn shop. We'll hock them. We'll finance this deal. Well, your history books will clearly tell you they used some unusual methods to raise the money to finance the trip. Then when they started sailing in those 3 little ships, Columbus really had a sales job because those sailors thought they were going to go over the side. I mean, literally. And every single day he had to sell in order to sail. And as a matter of fact, he had agreed to turn back towards the homeland if they had not discovered or sighted land within a certain time. And just 8 hours before the crucial decision was made is when they discovered the land. And the call came forth, land ho! And the most profitable sales call in history came to a close. And then Columbus made the mistake that a lot of salespeople make in our world today. He did not service the account. He did not keep on selling. And a man named Americus Vespucius entered the picture, and he serviced the account. We did not become the United States of Columbus. We became the United States of America. America was populated by a salesman. Sir Walter Raleigh toured the coffee houses of London, selling those ignorant, fearful, superstitious people on the idea that they should leave the relative security of their homeland and come into this vast, uncharted, foreboding, weird wilderness that lay beyond the sea. It was a tremendous sales job. We were freed by a salesman. Do you really understand the tremendous recruiting job that George Washington had to do? He had to convince the farmers, the merchants, the backwoodsmen, the shipbuilders, the landowners, and all of the people to leave their homes, go to war against the most powerful nation on the face of this earth, largest army, most powerful navy, and he had to be honest and say, now look, if we win this war, there's no way I'm going to be able to pay you. And if we lose, they're going to hang you to the highest tree. Now, how many of you sales folks do any recruiting? Can I see your hands, please? Now, I want you to visualize this scene. You're trying to recruit somebody to sell with your company, and you have to tell them, look, if you make the sale, I don't have any money, I'm not going to be able to pay you, but if you miss the sale, we're going to line you up at daylight, and we're going to fire away. Now, that was the job Washington had to do, but he did the job. You know, we won our independence. As soon as we'd won our independence, Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Interior, or the treasurer rather, came to Mr. Washington and said, let's get the Congress to appropriate some money so that we might study the methods the British have used to establish their agents and factories around the world. The money was appropriated. I don't know if you've ever thought about this or not, but did you realize, ladies and gentlemen, for the first 168 years that America was populated, we had only moved to the Appalachian Mountains? Did you realize that with the appropriation of this money, we did set up trading posts, and just 30 years later, we were already to the Pacific Ocean? Yes, I'm proud to sell, because you see, our land has been developed because we are a land of salespeople. Now, at this point, you might have a question in your own mind. Well, Zig, if that's the case, if we as salespeople have done so much, why is it that salespeople are held in such low esteem? Why is our reputation not better? Why is it that people do not respect the profession, more than they do today? Well, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that one of the reasons that only 2% of the graduating seniors from college today are interested in going in the profession of selling is because we have not done our thorough job as salespeople. Basically, there are 4 reasons why the profession of selling is not regarded as high as it ought to be and is fast becoming, I hasten to add. Number 1, did you realize what the dictionary says about the word sell? The dictionary says it's a fraud. It's a hoax. It's right there in the dictionary. Can you believe such a thing like that? We ought to sue those rascals for writing such things as that. Number 2, we've done a lousy job of selling the profession of selling. Now, we've sold our goods, we've sold our products, we've sold our services, but we really haven't done a very good job of letting people know what the sales profession is all about. But we're correcting that right now, and you're part of the correction, because by the time we get through here, you're going to have that jumping up and down enthusiasm about the profession of selling. See, a lot of people are tremendously proud of their company, awfully proud of their products, their goods, or their services, but for whatever reason, they seem to be a little hesitant to let people know they're in the profession of selling. We just simply have not done the sales job. Now, there's the third reason why a lot of people don't really understand what the profession of selling is all about and why they have so many erroneous ideas. A few years ago, a fellow named Arthur Miller wrote a play. He called it, of all things, Death of a Salesman. And they featured some dude named Willie Loman, the perennial loser. And a lot of people have come to identify that with the sales professional, and that is absolutely weird, wild, insane, way out. Doesn't make any sense. They showed that thing on Broadway as a play. They made a movie out of it a long time ago, and I thought they'd finally put the deal to bed. And then they showed it on television, and then they showed it again on television, and then they revived the play on Broadway, and now they're doing the same thing again. I could not believe. Why don't they make a play entitled Death of a Doctor or Death of a Lawyer or something like that? It'd make even more sense. Absolutely. And then you take the music man, fellow named Harold Hill, the consummate con man. The story behind him. And a lot of people have gotten these weird ideas, therefore, from these presentations about what the profession of selling really is all about. And then there's a fourth reason, and that's this old Yankee peddler image, which is still a hangover. An amazing number of people think that a good salesman can sell anybody anything under any circumstances. That's crazy. Only a con man could do a thing like that. Selling is not making people want something they don't need, nor is it making them buy something they do not want. Selling, in the professional sense, is uncovering a need and then bringing to that individual the products or the goods or the services which fill that specific need. Now, let me see if we can establish some things here with some questions. How many of you folks sell a pretty good product? Can I see your hands? Okay. How many of you sell an extraordinarily good product? Can I see your hand? How many of you believe that when you sell that good product, well, let me ask you this way. The products you sell, how many of you sell one that solves a problem? Can I see your hand? Okay. How many of you believe that when you sell a product that solves a problem, that you deserve a profit? Can I see your hand? Okay. How many of you believe that when you sell 2 products that solve 2 problems, that you deserve 2 profits? Can I see your hand? Okay. Now, what you're saying is that the more problems you solve, the more profit you deserve. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, because as the late Fred Herman would say, that ain't sanitary. But that really, that really is what you're saying, isn't it, okay? Now, how many of you have been in the profession of selling for as long as a year? Okay? How many of you have still got all of the money you've earned in the last 12 months? Okay? How many of you have got customers whom you sold a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, who are still using and enjoying the benefits of what you sold them a year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago? Can I see your hands? Now, here's a very important question. Who made the best deal? Was it you or the customer? The customer, all right? Then is the sales process something you do to somebody or something you do for somebody? Isn't it for somebody? See, I fought in the ring 2 years. Matter of fact, the only reason I quit was because of my hands. The referee kept stepping on them, you know. But one of the things the coach used to always tell us when he had sent us out, he said, now, Zig, the first round, spar around, find out where the opponent is weak and capitalize on the weakness. In football, the coach says to the quarterback, find out where they're weak and exploit that weakness. In tennis, the instructions are find out where the opponent is weak and exploit the weakness. In the world of selling, we find out where the opponent, that is the customer, is weak, that is, has a need, and strengthen that need by selling them our goods, our products, and our services. You see, it really is true, folks. Selling is something you do for somebody and not to somebody. And that's our role. That's why we want to simply bring to you what is the truth about what this profession really is all about. Because a lot of times people say, okay, Zig, you got me sold that the selling profession is a marvelous profession. Now tell me the truth about these sales people and tell me what the salesperson receives as a result of doing all of this selling and all of this serving. Basically, in my judgment, the salesperson is the ultimate free person. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You see, the truth of the matter is you're the chairman of the board, you're the president, you're the secretary of treasury, you're the chief executive officer, you're the administrator, and oh yes, you're the janitor too. I mean, as salespeople, we do the whole bit, don't we? But the nice thing about it is you can get up any morning you want to because you occupy all of those positions. You can get right in front of that mirror, give that big old grin, you know, like a fellow I saw the other day, the only guy I've ever seen who could eat a banana sideways. I mean, listen, that guy was grinning. I mean, he really was. Well, you can get in front of that mirror and, you know, you can look yourself right in the eye and say, you're such a nice guy or you're such a nice girl. You deserve a raise. And the board just met. The vote was unanimous. The raise will become effective just as soon as you are. I mean, you see, the nice thing about this profession of selling is that we do have that ultimate freedom. Now, when we talk about ultimates, also in my judgment, it's the ultimate security in the world of selling is where you're going to find it. As you might recall, in the last recession, you know, the newspapers and the television and the radio have predicted 18 of the last 2 recessions. I mean, they seem to be right on the target, as my good friend Don Hudson would say. But, you know, when you analyze what they really say, when you look at the last recession, for example, there were some pilots and attendants who lost their job. There were some executives, some builders, some manufacturers who lost their job. There were secretaries and stenographers and file clerks who lost their job. There were teachers and superintendents who lost their job. There were a lot of people who lost their jobs. These were honest, sincere, dedicated, hard-working, intelligent, committed people. They lost their jobs not because they were not committed, not because they were not productive, but they lost their jobs because of the economy that we experienced. Now I challenge you, name me one honest, sincere, dedicated, hard-working, productive salesperson who lost their job during the recession. Ultimate security. Ultimate security. Absolutely. I'll never forget, I was doing a sales training seminar in Atlanta, Georgia. And these 2 young men came up to me and they said, you know, we'd like to get our money back on the seminar. And I said, what's the problem? They said, well, we just got fired from our job, and we have no need for sales training if we don't have something to sell. And I said, well, let me ask you guys a question. Do you like to sell? They said, oh, yeah, we love to sell. Well-trained, and they were good-looking young men, 25, 26, 27 years old, sharply dressed, you know. They said, we just had a personality conflict with the boss. I said, well, would you like to have another job in the world of selling? They said, we sure would. I said, you come on into the meeting, and I'll have you 25 job offers before you leave out here tonight. Is that a fair deal? They said, it's a fair deal. And then that night, I asked the question, how many of you, well, I'll ask you, how many of you folks here tonight are in the world of selling, and you're recruiting or hiring salespeople? Can I see your hand? Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you have an opening right now for an honest, sincere, dedicated, conscientious, hard-working, productive salesperson? Can I see your hand? They literally had more job offers than they could even remotely consider for at least the next 2 weeks. Now, why is that? Simply because a salesperson has the greatest security in the world. General Douglas MacArthur said that security is the ability to produce. And my friends, if you've got that ability to produce in the world of selling, I can absolutely guarantee you, you really do have that security. Now, you know, when we do have recessions, we deal with them in different ways. For example, in the business community, in the regular business structure, you know how they deal with recessions and declines and drops in business. They get all of the people together, and the president of the company, you know, gets on his best sad look, and he wears his sad suit, you know, and he makes this little brave speech about, we've got some tough times ahead, but we're going to tough it out. I mean, we're going to tighten our belt. We're going to cut the lights off early. I'm sorry. We're going to have to let a few people in this department go, and a few people in this department go, and a few people in the other department go, and we're really going to have to be on this austerity program, but we are going to tough it out. And that's the way they deal with a recession. Now, when sales organizations are confronted with that situation, they call another big meeting. They get all of the folks together and say, now, folks, you know, we hear this talk about this recession, but we have figured out a way to deal with it. We are all just going to have to work real hard to reduce our sales, and that's the way we'll solve the problem. Isn't that the way they generally handle it? Or do they get everybody together and they say, hey, you've heard all of this baloney about a recession. Let me tell you our answer to that. Man, we're going to put on a sales contest like you have never heard of before in your entire lifetime. We're going to put up prizes like you cannot believe. We're going to involve here some motivational training programs and some sales training programs, and we're going to have some incentives here that will absolutely boggle the imagination. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. We're going to get out there and we're going to show them where a recession is. We know business is never either good or bad out there. Business is either good or bad right here between your own two ears. And if you're thinking it's stinking, your business is going to be in the same shape. We're just going to give all of you a little checkup from the neck up, and we're going to go out there and we're going to knock them dead. And we're going to sell, sell, sell. Now, let me ask you a question. During the last recession, whenever it was, how many of you actually sold more during the recession than you'd sold before the recession? Can I see your hand? Isn't the world of selling an absolutely incredible thing? Yes, indeed. The salesperson really is an unusual individual. Do we make money? How many of you read U.S. News and World Report? Can I see your hand? About a little while ago, in one of the issues of U.S. News, they had a fascinating article in there. You know what the article said? It said that more salespeople are millionaires than doctors. Now, I don't know how that gets to you, but I kind of say, hey, what about that? We make more money than those dudes make. What about that? Yeah. I had the privilege just last week of addressing a sales organization. Their average income was over $70,000 a year, or in that neighborhood, and that's one more really nice neighborhood, is it is, you know. I talk to salespeople all the time who their first year in the business make $20,000 and $30,000. I've seen them who make $100,000, $200,000. As a matter of fact, years ago, Charles Schwab, who really was the master salesman, and Diamond Jim Brady, those dudes made $1 million a year selling over 100 years ago. An amazing thing, this profession of selling. Yes, yes, there is a substantial amount of income possibilities there. But you know what else? The Cox report revealed here about 2 years ago that in the world of selling, we're the ones who supply by far the biggest majority of the corporate officers. Now, many years ago, it was the salespeople, and then they drifted into the accountants and the attorneys, and they made the corporate officers out of them. But in the last 5 years, and the trend is now on a runaway path, they are realizing that what they really need running the organization is the optimistic, positive thinking outlook of the sales organization and the salesperson running that organization. They need somebody so optimistic they'd go after Moby Dick in a rowboat and take the tartar sauce with them. I mean, basically, that's the kind of individual that they are looking for. Yes, it's great to be a salesperson. Now, hopefully, I've exploded a lot of the myths about the profession of selling and what the salesperson himself or herself really earns. But the question comes up, who is the best salesperson? What type of individual or personality makes the best salesperson? For years and years, the general public has been led to believe that it's the extroverted, happy-go-lucky, backslapping, hail fella, well-met, joke-telling kind of an individual who makes the best salesperson. I'm glad you're seated because this might shock some of you. But if we were to divide this audience right here into two groups, one group are all introverts and the other group are all extroverts, I got news for you. The introverts will outsell the extroverts 100 times out of 100. That's right. Now, that probably shocks you. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe the best salesperson might not be an extrovert. They could well be. But I'm talking about over the long haul. Now, why is that? And incidentally, let me hasten to add, the introverts, in many cases, have acquired some of the characteristics of the extrovert. I mean, they've learned to be a little more outgoing, a little broader smile, a little more enthusiasm, and a little better handshake, and this kind of thing. But I'm talking about the nature of the individual. Why would the introvert make the better salesperson? There's several reasons for it. First of all, it is because the introvert is far more likely to be better organized, and they're better